All right. I think we are probably live. I think we are now. Yep. So here we are again, Fabrice and I. Oops, I'm going to change the view. Let's do gallery view. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I enjoy our chats. It's almost like we could probably talk for hours and hours about all of this stuff. And we thought we'd jump on and talk a little bit about because we want to demonstrate the practicality, the practical application of human design, like why it's even relevant to get into this. Why is it valuable? How's it helpful or supportive to know this stuff? And we thought for a little bit of fun today, we'd talk a bit about our dating experience in terms of how we understand human design since we've learned about it, kind of what types or aspects of another work really well with us, what don't work so well, where our personal challenges or experiences that we've discovered through this process. So yeah, I'd love to throw it over to you for a little bit and hear. I mean, you just got married, right?
Yeah, I did yesterday. It was it was the first step of the legal process, but we want to celebrate once we get to Bali.
Beautiful. I'm really happy to hear that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit about your experience in dating, in forming this relationship through the lens of human design, or and has it guided you? Were you guided by human design in the beginning, or is that something that kind of you made sense of as you were dating and then started to understand what was working?
Yeah, both. Because for a while I was not really aware of the dating strategies for different types and different lines and profiles, and some of it I just had a clear sense of it, and I think that's something that we touched upon in the previous live, where I was talking about this thing of waiting for recognition and the invitation as a projector, which doesn't really play into the typical idea of the masculine pole, which is usually initiating, going after the woman, making things happen, and so on and so on. And naturally over the years, even before really understanding the projector and understanding also my type being the 4-6, the fourth line being this opportunistic, so those opportunities actually coming through different friends, connections, and it kind of just happens without having to chase the other. So it all kind of happened naturally, and then I started to make sense of it. So I never felt, because I have another projector friend, but he's a first line and I'm a fourth line, and the first line actually is the chase or get chased. It's kind of like this primal seduction where actually they do like this thing, and they do like to feel like they're being chased, or they do like the chase. But when you're a projector and you're supposed to wait for recognition and the invitation, and yet your mind is looking for the chase, it can create some conflicts there as well. In my case, being a projector and knowing that I'm not really here, especially for important things like relationships, realizing that I never got anything, solid. I never got entered any meaningful relationship by pushing, chasing, going after. Never. Everything always came to me. Everything that stayed and that was good and that was meaningful always somehow came to me easily.
I'm a fourth line too, and I resonate with that. I remember trying online dating apps. Absolute nightmare as a fourth line. Just doesn't work.
Yeah,
Facebook
exactly.
was an entirely different story. Friends of friends, or people who are connected already with me on Facebook, much easier. It would just kind of suddenly it would be there.
Yeah, and so that's how the previous long-term relationship was, and then this one also. We met about 4 years ago, and we met through a friend, and she arranged everything. I literally didn't have to do anything to start this thing. It just happened. It kind of fell on my lap, you know, and I was like, oh, hello, you know, and it kind of went on from there. That being said, as a projector, there are ways to do things that can attract the other, even if we don't yet know who the other is. Yeah. So as projectors, so much of, well, opportunities in life, including business, money, all those things, but also including dating and meeting people, has to do with our attractive field, and you know, the art of pulling rather than the art of pushing, you know, or simply mingling and hoping that something is going to happen, you know, which is more of a generator strategy. In our case, it's really about amplifying our own attractive field, you know, by making sure that we're, you know, not bitter, that we're like self-sourced fulfillment, that we're in a very, very good state, and that we're quite clear on what we want and what we don't want. You know, like the ability, like a state of like desperation and really looking for it is not going to help either. And saying, you know, having a clear no so that we can really attract this yes. And I mean, with my last relationship, so we met 4 years ago. Before that, I was coming out of a long relationship, and I made the decision at the time that I was like, okay, this feels right. We should definitely be breaking up. We're not meant to be together. And I didn't want to just start sleeping around as a distraction. You know, I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to wait until it feels like this is really like, there's really something here. Yeah. And I started.
How much do you use your, like, you're an emotional authority, so the solar plexus, how much do you use that in that kind of like dating process, or did you use that? Because like I'm imagining this story. So you're saying like, nope, not going to start sleeping around. I'm going to wait until it feels right. So I imagine, like, I'm curious how the emotional authority ties into that waiting until it feels right, or how it tied into it in this story.
Well, I didn't want to start just putting myself out there just out of an emotional reaction. And as an emotional being, one thing that I had learned already throughout the years is to be able to deal with a lot of those things internally, and to feel deeply what's going on and all of that, but to not try and, you know, distract myself from that process. And once that process, you know, was pretty much over, then I could move on to the next thing, which was being absolutely convinced that there is someone out there that's going to be like a great fit, perfect fit. That's how it would feel, and not in a, you know, romantic delusion kind of perfect fit. I didn't ask for easy. I didn't ask for none of that, but I came up with a very, I even wrote it down, a super clear description of my ideal woman. And it was not about, you know, exactly specific physical traits, or it was like the overall thing, but especially how we felt together, how she felt emotionally, energetically, the overall feeling of her body, how she was in terms of spiritual aspirations, how her mind was, how she felt about me, all those things, you know. And it became like so clear over time. And I mean, again, the question is, you know, was that thing seeking me, or was it me seeking it, you know? And the reason in the first place that I got into it was probably because I was feeling that it was coming. But nonetheless, I didn't compromise. And that's super important as a projector. You know, when you enter a field of desperation, whether you feel lonely, whether you feel horny and you just want to kind of sleep around, whether any of those things, which really are just desperate moves, it's not really going to help you to find that fuck yes, you know. But, and so in my case, it only took a few weeks of that. And then, as I said, she kind of fell on my lap, you know. And so that's how we got into it. And it's a very important piece for projectors, because I've noticed the same in business. You know, sometimes without changing anything externally, just by doing the inner work, suddenly money starts flowing and opportunities start flowing just because of a meditation, or or a few days of centering myself again without even doing outside work. And I think the same is valid for relationships.
And like, I want to go a tiny little bit into detail, but not too far. The first question I have, like, you're a 4-6, and I know that she's a 1-3, right? And so, and then it's the second line that relates more to the purpose of relationship and how we do relationship. Yeah. And so I'm curious how the line 6 and the line 3 between her get on. Like, how do they work out? Like, because
quite well, actually. I mean, there is a harmonious relationship between the 1-3 and the 4-6, because it's, without getting into the details of the hexagrams and the lines, but it's the same profile, just, the 1-3 is the purely personal profile, and the 4-6 are, purely transpersonal qualities, but it's the same profile, there's just one line of a gap between the two. So there is a harmony there, but at the same time, so many differences. Yeah. I feel that the third line with the 6th line works quite well, because the 6th line, I think the 6th line is able to give, first of all, the 6th line is a lot like a third line for the first part of its life. The 6th line, until its Saturn return, it's not that it doesn't have yet 6th line qualities, it does, but it's living out this, experimentation phase. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of, and in my case, it's been very true. I've tried so many different things over the years.
6th line I've spoken to has had the same experience, and they hit that Saturn return, and everything changes. It's so like consistent, so consistent.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can relate to that process a lot, first of all, but with that kind of different, the 6th line is known for its ability to look at things from a higher perspective, from a different vantage point, which, can be very useful for the third line, because the third line sometimes is lacking, that long-term vision, that farsightedness, and especially the 1-3 profile, it's very, very short-sighted. And that can be, its biggest difficulty in life. So I feel, and the 6th line, well, once it hits its Saturn return, now it's mostly learning through observing others. And so, as a 6th line, I can be very grateful for, all the 1-3s around me, or any third lines around me, because I get, I'm like, thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice. I get to learn through you. So yeah, I think they work really well together. Yeah.
Well, so there's like, there's so many levels that we can understand relating through the human design lens, let alone the gene keys. That adds a whole nother dynamic that we won't touch upon here. But the 3 kind of main features to begin with, at least for me anyway, where I would look, obviously 4 real main features. There's the type, there's the profile, there's the centers, and then there's the channels, like that really makes a difference. And so, like we were just saying before, so your partner is a generator and you're a projector, and like, how does that work for you in relating? Like, how does that dynamic, how do you understand that dynamic and play with that dynamic to best effect? Like, how does that influence your relationship, knowing and being able to work with that dynamic?
Well, going back to the beginning, reflecting on it, she also entered this relationship from the correct place, because in that time especially, she was in this complete state of flow and response. And looking back, it's like, it doesn't feel like she made a conscious decision. As much as me being a projector, I was very, very conscious of what I was calling in. She kind of fell on my lap, and she was all like just water and responding and just going with it. And now looking back, she's kind of like, it feels like her mind at least was not fully there. you know, which is a great thing because she was really acting correctly, you know, what felt right in her body at the time. And it was even difficult for her to kind of understand like what actually happened, because it didn't feel like there was a conscious decision on her side. I'm not a manifestor, so she's not gonna feel a clear sort of push on her sacral. I'm not a generator or manifesting generator, so it's not like she's feeling like my super strong energy either. So it was kind of like this magic trick. It just kind of happened, and we're together. Look what happened, you know. And it was just kind of entered like that, which is interesting. But coming back to your question and the relationship, it's both amazing and difficult because, well, the archetypal relationship, and I don't necessarily mean intimate relationship, but a relationship between the two types is going to be projector generator. You know, the projector literally came here as a type to guide sacral beings. That's our job, to guide energy. And so on one hand, I love it and she loves it. I love to have, you know, a lot of sacral energy to guide, to play with, to interact with, to you know, I clearly see the difference between her and the previous relationship, who was another projector. But at the same time, this constant sacral pressure can feel like a lot as a non-sacral being, because, you know, and we've talked about this before, you and I, like
they never stop humming.
Yeah, and it's always there. It doesn't matter whether, you know, I'm in my own space or am I, like, it's there, you know, it's there, even if we're each doing our own thing in the room. And by the way, I've used it in amazing ways as well. You know, it can be good for work, it can be good for several things.
If my partners are lying around like on the bed or something, reading a book, doing her thing, and I'm working, it's like, oh, I have extra energy to work.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of
my house generator, and his office is just like not that far away from me, and so he works, and while he's working, if I focus, I get so much done because I can just feel his work energy happening.
Yeah, so that's a great way to use it. We, of course, you know, we need to know when sometimes it's important to have time away from sacral beings, just to take a break for our own system. But it's also, I noticed that over the years, I get used to it. And I notice also that it's kind of, this constant hum is also here to like shake things up a bit. And I've noticed that it's kind of triggering all of my constrictions and repressions and all the like firm boundaries that I'm trying to keep. And no, I mean, not even boundaries, but, you know, not healthy boundaries, but, you know, and the level of control that I'm trying to keep and all that. And it's kind of like all the time, it's like a place like Bali. Somehow there's all the time this hum in terms of energy, you know, it's all the time. I don't know, because it's on a volcano or something, but it always feels like it's kind of like shaking you up a bit from the inside. It's kind of the same being with a sacral being. And I've also noticed different qualities of sacral beings or different intensities of sacral beings. Like my partner now feels huge energetically, like very, very strong. And I've been with other generators or manifesting generators that just don't feel as intense. So there's different degrees of intensity as well. But I noticed that over the years, the more I let go, and I mean it in a good way, the more, in a way, I let her in, the more I see results on myself. Yeah, and that it can be a beautiful partnership and collaboration. But if you're constantly trying to fight off this hum and you don't want to feel it, then you're fucked. It's going to be an endless battle. And I went through quite a lot of that, and it didn't really work for either of us. So because we live in a sacral world. We can't just stay away from sacral beings and just be on the computer and guide sacrals from around the world, but meanwhile we cannot have them in our field. So yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah. What about you? Because you are with the generator, but you're a manifester, so how does that feel?
So it's a little bit of a different story. And as I've reflected on my dating history, to my best knowledge, I've generally dated generators or manifesting generators, particularly. Manifesting generators are fun because they're so fast to respond. But the woman that I'm with, she's a 3/6 profile, which has its own type of fun associated with it. The 3/6 has, especially in their early age, they're the double six. And
you mean double three?
Double three, yeah, double three. And yeah, so there's something that feels very fun and exciting about that. And yeah, for me, as a manifestor working with a generator, it feels like I'm naturally set up for the kind of polarity that we've got as our conventional understanding of what polarity is. And there's so many subtle ways, but I'm almost set up in the right direction. I'm the manifestor. I'm the one who's supposed to direct. I have the strong energy that pushes. I have an ego, a defined ego. So I have a lot of will that kind of pushes on, and the sacral being responds. She was dating a manifestor before me as well. So she's both tends to be attracted to manifestors, and also has well-tested experience in how to deal with how forceful a manifestor can be. I can be very forceful without even intending to be. It's not even my decision. I have to consciously ramp down my forcefulness all the time. I'm having to dial myself in all the time and contain myself. So yeah, I'm definitely there's that sacral that I'm I feel like I'm wired, I'm designed to be attuned to the sacral. It's I know where it is, and I can feel it. And so if I date someone who's a projector, it's really weird because I'm I'll push on that sacral. I'll be like, hey, let's do this thing. Or I'm going to turn you on now. And they're just nah, I don't want to do that. Or no, I'm going to do something else. And there's nothing I can do about it. And it's really weird. It's kind of disorienting because I'm so used to being able to go push, and I'll either get a no or a yes. And if I get a no, I'm okay, I know it's a no. Or if I get a yes, I go bang, the energy's on. With a projector, it's the no or the yes feels the same. Doesn't actually feel different. A yes, okay, now we're going to do something, but it's there's no energy behind it. It's so strikingly interesting and strange feeling. So I've had to train myself to not try and treat projectors like generators. And I got in a lot of trouble doing that in the past as well. You don't like it.
Yeah, and I don't think that's how the relationship was ever intended to be anyways. I it's the same. The manifestor is here to initiate, but it's mostly on sacral beings, because in our case it's we talked about it before. We're like cats, and we all know how cats can be, when they want, when they feel like it, and there's not this, it's not like a dog where you feel this huge amount of energy and you're want to go on a walk, yes, and immediately they get so excited. As you said, as a projector, a no is not going to feel like an intense no, but a yes is also not going to feel like an intense yes. It's sure.
Yeah. Totally. So I enjoy, I just seem to be drawn to that direction. And then I've been finding the 3/6 profile in particular really complements me as a 4/1. It's my 4, the 4 in me feels like it can hold the 3, the line 3, the kind of the chaos and the I just want to fuck things up, and I want to I want to break something, and I want to change it all the time, and I want to make and break, I want to cut off and come back. My line 4 seems capable of being able to hold that and just be cool. I got ya.
Mhm.
You know, that's all right. But then in the unconscious or in the design part, I'm a line 1. And even though I'm like really focused on relating and relationship and intimacy and everything, actually in the depths of the relating, I'm all the way down the bottom. I have the narrowest view, but like almost like the most granularity. It's like I can see in very high detail the dynamics and mechanisms of relationship, but I don't have a very broad spectrum view. It's like it's quite narrow. But her as a line 6, and this would probably relate for you as well, has this very broad view of understanding relationship in this like time context time context and like the level of subtlety that's playing out between me and other people and all kinds of things happening. She has this awareness of it that I don't have. I've had to accept that I don't have that. And actually, when I did that, it's like a relief. It's actually like, oh, that's not actually my role, is to see in that with that level of broad spectrum, but she can. And I really enjoyed it. It's almost like we hold the extreme ends of what we can see. I'm the most tightly focused and she's the broader spectrum. And I feel at the relational space, I'm really held by her, which also supports the polarity, you know, like in terms of the communion or the relationship, there's a way in which the bigger picture is almost held and understood by her in ways that I don't know. And I just go, okay, I'm going to like give myself up to the feminine mystery, the chaos of your knowing that doesn't have any cognitive rational, you know, perception to it. It's like, I just know it. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Explain to me rationally. I can't, I just know it. And I'm like, okay, I just surrender to that because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the 6th line body, you know, the cellular knowing. It's a knowing, a deep knowing in the body. And sometimes you manage to make sense of it and sometimes you don't. But it's like, I just know. And the first line is like, nah, I don't know about this. You know, it doesn't seem very solid to me.
Yeah.
And
I've been having to like relax that and go, okay, you know, you tell me the thing and I'll make sense of it, you know, which is actually really fun, you know, because then I will like bring it all the way to the ground and I'll take it apart and look at the mechanisms and the workings of it. And then I'll be able to put it back together and replicate it and go, okay. And my line 1 does that and then gives it to my line 4. That's like, now I want to spread it and tell everyone about it. But that's what I'm really feel like that my skill is there.
And that's the thing with different profiles. We're really meant to help each other. Because I reflected a lot on the fact that, you know, my woman is a 1-3, my best friend is a 1-3. I surround myself with those hyper grounded, you know, 4-4-6 can be quite heavy as well, you know, this 1-3 energy. You know, they're usually the most like kind of cynical on a lot of things as well. But at the same time, it helps me so much because as a 4-6, I can get lost in like this idealism, you know, and in a vision that doesn't even belong to this time and place. And so they help me to ground that vision. They help me to ground it. They help me to test also, because I can have this cellular knowing and certain concepts, or I see certain connections between things that they don't see. And okay, let's test it, you know, and they're here to dig into it, you know, both mentally and experientially, and to see like, okay, is this solid, you know, and in today's world, you know, is this solid as humans, you know, in this body? Is it solid like on all levels? And I know that, you know, I always talk about this 1-3 stamp of approval. You know, if a 1-3 approves of your shit, that's the best testimonial, the best recommendation that you can have is from a 1-3, because if, you know, if it works with them and if it lands for them, you know, then you know it's going to work for everybody else. And so yeah, it works both in my work and in relationships. You know, it's like, it's a very kind of humbling and grounding energy that can be needed, you know, for the 4-6 profile that can get, you know, a bit too idealistic with, you know, what love is and the highest principles, and, you know, always never compromise on that. And it's beautiful. Also, the 6th line can get, you know, can get arrogant in a way, you know, looking down a bit, you know, on like, oh, poor you know, and that gets humbled quickly also if you hang out with 1-3s, and if you well, life will humble you anyways, but it's very helpful to spend time with different energies and different profiles with different perspectives, and it's just a mutual help. It's not just like the higher lines that are helping the lower lines. No, the 1, 2, the 3 help ton when it comes to the other lines.
Yeah, when like I was saying, that line 3 in the front with her makes so much excitement. I feel like we're constantly on an adventure. Like every time we hang out, it's an adventure. I don't know what's going to happen. It's always an adventure, which is exciting because I don't have to create that. It's already inherent in our connection. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to like touch a little bit on like, I really love exploring the human design map relationally. So we look at our composite chart and have spent time understanding our composite chart and what's the flow of energy there. And so there's like, between the two of us, we make up 2 of those tantric channels. The channels between the sacral and the G center are tantric channels, and we define a G between us. We don't have a G center either, and we define a G. And it's like, it feels very much like our relationship is designed to be exploring what is love and what is identity. And that very much is the focus. Our attention is drawn to that G center that we define a lot, which is actually a really fun place for me. I've been in other relationships where it's all defined and it's an undefined solar plexus, and all we can do is talk about how we feel. And I thought that's a good idea, but it's not. That's not ideal for me. I don't want to spend all my time talking about how we feel. So there's all kinds of interesting combinations that happen in the center, that the centers and how they're defined between the channels, that really determine how energy flows between us. And one last little story, one of those channels, 14-2, I have gate 14, she has gate 2. When we first started dating, whenever we were making love, I would literally hear in my head 14-2, 14-2. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Why is this in my head? 14-2, 14-2, 14-2. When we sat down and unpacked it, it went away. My mind no longer said those things, but it was really the 14-2 in the way that it was configured with me, the 14, her, the 2, feels like a very strong masculine feminine relationship. Like the 14 is the kind of the guidance, the competence, the support. The 14 really supports the 2, the gate 2, in knowing the direction to go, like understanding and orienting themselves. And that flow of it felt like as that was playing in me, that was opening up between us. And it's one of the main dynamics of our connection, is that I provide that kind of ground of competency that helps her increasingly know where she's heading. And so there's lots of, and the other channel that we have is the 10-20. I have the 20, she has a 10. And anyone that I date who creates that circuit with me, that channel is really another beautiful channel, because the 20 is self-assurance and the 10 is self-love. And so it's like through our connection, I feel more and more confident and she feels more and more self-loving. And that's a beautiful thing to connect. So the final kind of point in there is, as we go into these details, we can see that we bring out things in each other. And through this kind of map, we can understand what those things that we bring out in each other are, what the kind of purpose or the point of our relationship is, what the benefits of it, in terms of whether we want to stay in it or not. We can get more pragmatic around, actually, this relationship doesn't really work very well when we look at the design. And you'll feel that it's gritty, if we're gritty in person and we're having lots of conflict and we look at the design, it's not working. It's like, you can try to make it work, but it'll be like taking bits of like two pieces of a puzzle that don't fit together and using a hammer to get them to match. They'll match, but things won't, it'll be off. So yeah, I just like, for me, it's like super fascinating and exciting, the fact that we can play in this kind of way with understanding our relationships with a lens that's like powerful and poetic and interesting.
Yeah, we can get into great details, which is, of course, something we're going to explore in the different programs we're going to run. But what you're describing is those attraction channels, those electromagnetic poles Yeah, and the karmic pull between two people and why they're getting together in the first place. And then, you know, some centers get defined together, some don't, and so, you know, the relationship is affected by all of that. You get a good idea also of the overall theme and the release valve of the relationship, depending on the open centers as well. So you were saying, like, you know, all we're going to do is be emotional and talk about our emotions. And, you know, and I know a couple, they both have this open solar plexus, and when they're together, the only center that's still open is the solar plexus. And oh my god, so much fucking drama all the time, you know, it's endless. It
only
just gets
emotion.
like amplified, and they just create this monster together. And then sometimes they even like throw it into the world, you know, like it's just such a mess on the emotional level. That being said, over the years, there's also a certain, well, because there's a fascination with that, they also have interesting breakthroughs on the emotional level and emotional awareness. So there's potential. It's not a bad thing necessarily. I see it in my own relationship. It's interesting because also for us, we have an open G, but when we are together, we have a defined G. So, you know,
really enjoy that. That's a really nice thing to have, a shared G center. It's like having a collective, like the space between us has a collective identity. We create an identity and we create
and direction
for love between us. It's like that's nice. That's a nice feature.
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful combination. And in our case, the only center we have open is the throat, you know, and it's true. We have our greatest gift, as well as our biggest complaint, is how much we talk, you know. So on one hand, we have communication like no other that I have yet to met, really. And I'm sure there's couples out there, but in my personal field, I have yet to met like such a good level of honest communication, which is just so natural.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, we've said it before, like, yeah, we're great at talking, but sometimes it's time to act, you know, and actually follow up on what we talk about. So those are the things that can come up in relationships. And so it's very interesting to go into those details one by one, and the whole thing starts to make a lot of sense. And it's true, like, you know, in theory, there are no right or wrong profiles. And there are no like, and then I mean in relationships, but like you were saying, some of them are going to bring a lot more friction than others, and that's just purely energetical. You know, it's just when you look, because you have all sorts of composite channels. You know, you have those attraction channels, you have compromise channels, you have friendship channels. You know, you have all sorts of them. That yeah, and all of those, you know, are bringing in a different energy.
Mating channels, the 59 to 6. Like if two people, if one has the 59 and one has the 6, they're probably going to have a baby together. I've seen this a number of times. It's like, it's almost like when those people come together, all they can think about is we need to make a baby. It's bizarre.
Or just like, because I had a ex-lover, and we formed this channel together, and there was just a very strong sexual pull. You know, we were both like way too young to think about kids, and we never really went into a relationship anyways. But yeah, it's one of the good examples. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so much more to explore there, but hopefully that gave anyone watching a little bit of a taste. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing and too much jargon in there, but a little bit of a taste of like how deep this is, and also how beneficial. I know that it has without a doubt impacted my dating life. The level of awareness, and particularly the ability to go beyond the ego, to go into a transpersonal, beyond the personal space, to go transpersonal through understanding us in an objective way, is a conflict reduction technique. Once we kind of understand it, it makes us have more sense, and we get to know what we want to discover and explore, and what's outside of the scope of that. So very beneficial for dating, relationship, sex, intimacy, all of those things.
Yeah, and that it's all just mechanics. And it's also important to understand that we are not our profile, meaning that this profile is in this life, in this body. And, you know, it might seem like a romance killer, you know, to start putting all those labels and numbers and all of that. And you know, but where's the magic? No, it's just a very honest and practical and beautiful way, by the way, to harmonize a relationship, to really understand how to live together. That being said, there is also, we each have the part of us, our higher self, that is beyond the profile. And that is something that I encourage everyone to explore for themselves, but also in their relationships. Who is the other beyond this profile? Because there is a soul there is a spirit, and that is, very important for everyone as a reminder. We're not limited to the profile, and we are in the profile, but we're not the profile.
Yeah, great, perfect, beautiful words. Thank you.
Thank you. Till next time.
Till next time.